Recently, John Spike, the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders, appeared on a podcast and shared some intriguing thoughts about Ashton Jeanty. He talked about his son's strong opinions on the running back position, especially regarding the possibility of selecting Jeanty with the 6th overall pick. Interestingly, the Raiders have also been exploring trades for a running back, which raises questions about Spike's true feelings about Jeanty. In the podcast, which lasted about 25 minutes, Spike was relaxed and open, clearly enjoying the conversation. One of the standout moments came when he discussed his son's enthusiasm for Jeanty. Here's a snippet of what he said. "My oldest son has made it clear that if we don't pick Ashton Jeanty at number 6, he's walking out of the family. He'll probably go support whoever drafts Ashton." It's pretty funny, actually. He's really into fantasy football and loves the idea of touchdowns, even if he doesn't fully grasp the complexities of team building. I love that my 10-year-old is so passionate about the draft process, but I also worry about the life he's signing up for. He even walked into our building and told Mark Davis that if I don't pick Jeanty, I'm not doing my job right. When asked if his son watches game film, Spike replied, "No, he just goes on YouTube to watch highlights." He added, "But those are just highlights. You need to watch full games to really understand a player." This exchange reveals a lot about Spike's family dynamics and his son's excitement for the draft. It's fascinating to see how a young fan's passion for fantasy football can influence opinions on real-life team decisions. Now, let's dive deeper into what this all means for the Raiders and explore some recent rule changes that could impact the game. During the podcast, a question came up about whether John Spike watches game tape. He quickly replied that he doesn't, and instead, his son Jack just watches highlights on YouTube. Spike humorously reminded him, "Hey Jack, those are just highlights. You need to watch the full games to really understand a player." This exchange is quite telling, especially considering Spike's recent visit to the Boise State Pro Day. Interestingly, Spike was the only general manager present at that Pro Day, which took place on the same day as the Pro Days for LSU and Ohio State, two schools with around 30 NFL prospects. Boise State, on the other hand, had just 2. It raised eyebrows when Spike chose to attend Boise State's event instead of the others. At the time, we speculated that he might be very interested in Boise State's running back, Ashton Jeanty. If the Raiders want Jeanty, they'll likely need to pick him in the top 15, possibly even at the 6th overall pick. So, why did Spike go to Boise State? It makes you wonder if he's genuinely interested in Jeanty, or if he's trying to set up a trade with another team that might want him. For instance, could he be trying to entice the Bears, who might be eyeing Jeanty? After all, Ben Johnson, the Bears' offensive coordinator, has a solid track record with running backs, including Jahmyr Gibbs, whom they drafted in the first round. It's possible Spike was trying to bait another team into making a move, which makes his choice to attend the Boise State Pro Day even more intriguing. As I reflect on Spike's comments and the relaxed atmosphere of the podcast, I can't help but think he's speaking some truth. He mentioned that his son is motivated by fantasy football and touchdowns rather than the intricacies of team building, and that's a fact. To build a championship team, you need to focus on the fundamentals, especially in the trenches. A strong offensive line and defensive line are crucial for success. Right now, the Raiders don't have an elite quarterback to lead them, which makes it even more important to build a solid foundation. The Raiders have a solid quarterback in Geno Smith, but to make the most of his talents, they need to protect him. I have to be honest, the Raiders' offensive line isn't looking great right now. It hasn't shown that it can be a top 10 unit. Jackson Powers-Johnson is promising and could be one of the top centers in the league, and Kolton Miller is a solid tackle, ranking among the top 20. Those two give me some confidence, but I'm not so sure about the guard positions or DJ Glaze at right tackle. Sure, Glaze might prove himself as a long-term solution, but from what I've seen, he hasn't shown the elite movement that you need in an offensive tackle. I've watched a lot of football over the years, and when I look back at players like Christian Darrisaw, Penei Sewell, and Rashawn Slater during their rookie seasons, It was clear they were destined for greatness. You could see their agility, football IQ, and how they handled various pass rushers. I even run a football scouting channel where I break down players weekly, so I know what to look for. With DJ Glaze, though, I just don't see that same potential. No elite tackle in the NFL lacks good movement, and right now, Glaze doesn't impress me in that area. Maybe he'll improve in his second year, but I'm not convinced yet. John Spike did mention Glaze when asked about the right tackle position, saying, "We have DJ Glaze." But he also added, "We have 8 to 9 picks, and will look to add competition." The Raiders have already brought in 2 offensive tackle prospects for visits, Will Campbell and Charles Grant. There's a chance they could be considered for the 6th overall pick, but if teams see them as guards, they might still be available in the second round. It's worth noting that there were some issues with arm-length measurements at the Combine, which could explain why the Raiders are interested in remeasuring Campbell, who has 32 1/4-inch arms. Overall, the Raiders' offensive line is still a work in progress, and I'm not fully confident in its current state. While the team has an elite defensive line, it's crucial to have a strong offensive line as well. Yes, Ashton Jeanty could be a valuable weapon, but without a solid O-line, will he truly be able to succeed? It's an interesting question, and we'll have to wait and see how things unfold. One intriguing development is the Raiders' reported interest in trading for a running back. According to reports from Honda Carpenter, the Raiders were looking into acquiring Kenneth Walker. You might recall that I mentioned they were trying to make a move for a running back, and it seems Walker's name has come up multiple times. While this isn't 100% confirmed, it does seem like the Raiders are genuinely interested in bringing in a player like Kenneth Walker. He was drafted by Pete Carroll as a second-round pick during Geno Smith's first year as a starter. However, Walker had a tough season last year, averaging only 3.7 yards per carry, which might affect his trade value. This year is crucial for Walker, as it's his contract year with the Seahawks. They also have another running back they can rely on, which opens the door for a potential trade. If the Seahawks decide to move on from Walker, they could save about $2.6 million, incurring only a small dead cap hit of $829,000. They might be able to get a 4th or 5th round pick in return. For the Raiders, unless they can find a better running back in the draft in rounds 4 or 5, I think Kenneth Walker could be a solid addition. However, I'm not entirely sure how John Spike feels about the running back position. Based on his comments, it seems he believes other positions are more critical. Part of building a successful team is understanding that it's not just about watching highlights. I completely agree with that. You need to focus on building a strong offensive line, and while Spike has made strides in that area during his time with the Buccaneers, the Raiders' offensive line still has a long way to go. There's potential for improvement, but I worry that they'll face challenges. For instance, if they go up against teams like the Eagles, whose defensive line is formidable, the Raiders' offensive line could struggle significantly. The same goes for the Bears, who have a deep and talented defensive line. If Geno Smith faces these tough defenses, he could have some rough games. Ultimately, while the Raiders can hope for a better offensive line, they need to recognize that strong defensive lines are often what separate playoff teams from the rest. As we look ahead, there are a couple of ways the Raiders could approach their offensive line situation. They could either find that franchise right tackle or consider moving DJ Glaze to guard, which I believe could be a smart move. If Jackson Powers-Johnson plays center, I think Glaze would be a strong fit at one of the guard positions, likely outperforming the other options currently on the roster. We'll have to wait and see what the Raiders decide to do as we move forward. Now let's shift our focus and wrap things up by discussing some significant rule changes that will impact the Raiders this season. There have been numerous proposals, some of which passed while others didn't, but one major change stands out: the implementation of Sony's Hawkeye technology. The NFL has officially decided to adopt this technology, which I found quite fascinating. Initially, I thought it might involve sensors in the football to track its position on the field, but it's actually a bit different. The league will install 6 8K cameras in every stadium. These cameras will work together to determine where the football should be spotted on the field. What's crucial about this setup is that all the cameras will be synced, which hasn't always been the case in the past. For example, if Fox is broadcasting a game, they might have their own cameras, while the NFL and the stadium could have additional cameras, but they wouldn't be synchronized. This lack of coordination made it difficult to pinpoint exactly where the ball was during a play. With Sony's Hawkeye technology, all 6 8K cameras will record simultaneously, allowing officials to freeze the action and switch between different camera angles to accurately locate the football. This should make it much more efficient to determine where the ball needs to be spotted. Additionally, it seems there will be someone in the booth monitoring all the camera feeds and advising the referees on where to place the ball. It's also worth noting that last season, Amazon Prime had its own cameras set up in stadiums for their broadcasts, providing unique angles that viewers enjoyed. These advancements in technology could significantly change how the game is officiated and how teams strategize, including the Raiders. With the new technology in place, it will be crystal clear when a play results in a first down, touchdown, or if the ball is out of bounds. Last season, there were several instances where referees made questionable calls, and those moments went viral on Twitter. The problem was that referees didn't have access to all the camera angles we saw at home. But with Sony's Hawkeye technology, that will no longer be an issue. This system is similar to what Amazon was doing, and it's a positive step for the NFL. It helps eliminate biases from officials and ensures that the game is officiated more accurately with the help of high-quality 8K cameras. In addition to this exciting technology, there are 3 other important updates I want to discuss. First, the NFL has approved an expansion of the replay assist system. This change is significant because we've all seen instances where a flag is thrown for a penalty, like a helmet-to-helmet hit, only for the officials to pick it up later, often leading to confusion and frustration. Now, with the expanded replay assist, if a flag is thrown for a specific penalty, like a horse collar tackle or roughing the kicker, the replay assist will step in to clarify if the call was incorrect. For example, if a flag is thrown for a face mask but it turns out to be just a hand grazing the helmet, the replay assist can correct that. However, it's important to note that the replay assist can't initiate a flag. It can only correct an incorrect call after the flag has been thrown. This is still a significant improvement, especially in situations where a player like Patrick Mahomes gets called for roughing the passer after barely being touched. This change should benefit the Raiders, particularly in tight games where every call matters. The second update involves a change to the kickoff rule. Last year, if a kickoff landed in the end zone, the receiving team would start at the 30-yard line. Now, they will begin at the 35-yard line. This adjustment is part of the NFL's efforts to enhance the game and potentially increase scoring opportunities. The NFL is making some strategic changes to kickoffs to encourage more plays. The goal is to have the ball land inbounds, rather than just kicking it out of the end zone. If a team opts to kick it out of the end zone, the ball will now be placed at the 35-yard line instead of the 30. That's a significant difference. Starting at the 35th means that just one solid 25-yard pass can put a team right into field goal range, potentially setting up a 57 or 58-yard attempt, something most kickers can handle these days. To keep the ball in play, kickers will need to aim for the area between the goal line and the 20-yard line, which is certainly doable for most. This change may also lead teams to rethink their roster strategies. Some teams might choose to limit the number of special teams players, opting instead for specialized offensive and defensive players. For instance, rather than keeping an extra tight end who excels in special teams, they might prioritize a blocking tight end or a defensive player who can contribute more effectively in their primary role. As a result, we could see some players at the bottom of the depth chart being replaced due to this new kickoff rule. Finally, let's talk about the overtime rule. Last season, the NFL introduced a special rule for the playoffs, ensuring that both teams would have at least one possession in overtime, even if the first team scored a touchdown. Previously, if the first team kicked a field goal, they would win the game. Now, if a team scores a touchdown in overtime, the other team still gets a chance to respond. This rule has now been extended to the entire regular season, which I think is a common sense move. If one team scores a touchdown, the other team should have the opportunity to do the same. However, this change might lead teams to reconsider their strategy in overtime. Instead of always opting to receive the ball, teams might start choosing to kick off. If the first team scores a touchdown, they could then kick a field goal, knowing that the other team will have a chance to respond. This could create a scenario where teams feel pressured to go for a 2-point conversion to win the game outright, adding another layer of strategy to overtime play. Football is all about strategy, and these rule changes will certainly influence how teams approach the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these rule changes. What do you think about the Raiders potentially trading for a running back? Could it be Kenneth Walker or someone else? And do you believe John Spike is genuinely interested in Ashton Jeanty, or is he looking elsewhere? Let me know what you think.